you very much, Tansy, and it's an honour to be given the opportunity to sort of introduce this launch of Chris's book. I think there's sort of three sort of points I want to touch on briefly. I mean, the first, obviously, is the issue. There's a lot of events and publications and reminiscences now about what happened 10 years ago, both the enormous demonstrations we organised and, of course, the war itself, which we came very, very close to stopping, or at least close to stopping British participation in, but as we know, we didn't. And of course, the first thing one has to acknowledge at any event associated with the 10th anniversary of the war is that this is the anniversary of the greatest criminal calamity of this century, which has killed upwards of 500,000 people. Of course, no one knows exactly what the figure is. Has wrecked Iraq for a generation or more, and has resolved none of the problems which it was supposed to resolve. And I think that's one thing that has changed over those 10 years, is that is almost universally acknowledged. I say almost, we can't say it's been completely acknowledged while there's still Tony Blair parading across the screens on his own anniversary tour. Even more unwelcome comeback than the Rolling Stones, really. And still saying I was right. And I do think, I mean, this is not a major point, I suppose, how disgraceful some of the BBC interviewing of him has been. The BBC was a disgrace 10 years ago when they told all their journalists they can't come on the march, and they regurgitated all the government's lies, and they're still lobbing softballs at Tony Blair for allowing him to apologise for himself. And I think one thing that is clear is that ordinary people in this country haven't forgotten. They haven't forgotten either taking part in that demonstration. Where I occasionally get people come up to me and just say, you know, I bump into them at a party or something, and say, "Were you there on February the 15th? And I said, "Well, yeah, actually I was. A long way away, you know, hiding from Tim Robbins on the stage." But people haven't forgotten. And just to tell you one sort of symptom of that is one of the things we're doing at Unite, which is the union I work for, is we are trying to change the Labour Party. Don't boo or heckle, I know it's not everyone's game here, but that's what we're trying to do. We ring our activists in constituencies to try and persuade them to join the Labour Party, to fight for the union's policies and so on. We have a reasonable success rate, but the most common reason given on the phone for rejecting this invitation to join the Labour Party is one word: Iraq. And if it's two words, it's Tony Blair. And for a lot of the sort of people in the Westminster bubble, you know, Iraq's the issue 1 week or 1 month, and then they move on and it's something else. It's, you know, academies or whatever. And they think that people out there just forget and move on with them to the next sort of hot topic in the House of Commons. But actually they don't. They remember, and I think they remember with anger what was done, and they remember with pride their own efforts to stop it. And I think we should all share in that pride. Now, I've read Chris's book, and I think it absolutely does justice to the both the interweaving of the issues, the politics, the underlying drive for war, the war on terror, what Bush was doing, what Blair was doing, and what we were doing to oppose it at the time. And that's quite it's not as easy to do as it sounds. And actually, one of the merits of Chris's book, one of the many merits, is its concision. It's not very long, as the old joke goes. I have written you a long letter because I haven't got time to write you a short one. And actually, it takes a lot of work to sort of boil down, you know, very complicated, dramatic period in our political history and all our own involvement into something that people now can look and it can make sense. Because while I say people haven't forgotten, of course, there's some people who never knew, or never knew as adults, you know, a generation growing up, taking part in struggles against austerity and the consequences of it. And I think, if I can slightly disagree with our esteemed chair, I think Tony Blair is way more hated than David Cameron. And so far, I would say he deserves to be, because David Cameron has many crimes and no doubt will commit many more if he's allowed to get away with it, but he hasn't killed 500,000 or more people. And I think, you know, younger people today, they need to understand even what happened 10 years ago, because they weren't part of it as adults and weren't involved in that movement. And I think Chris's book is absolutely the best place to start, you know, for recalling the movement and the crimes that were committed at the time. And the last thing I want to say really is just a word about Chris himself. Now, there's aggravations to being chair of a Stop the War Coalition. There's no point in denying it now. There were aggravations, but also a lot of you know, personally rewarding things. We don't do it for the personal rewards. There are personally rewarding things, and one of them is actually getting to know a lot of people, politically active people that you didn't know before, making new comrades, working across the traditions or the divides that sometimes, I don't know why I say sometimes, generally bedevil the left. And it was really, certainly, one of the pleasures for me was working with Chris, who made an outstanding contribution to Stop the War Coalition as the main organiser and chief steward of our demonstrations, a comrade that really worked, you know, as hard as anyone, definitely, and harder than 99% of people, to build and sustain the movement. So I think it was, you know, personally I'm happy to have the chance to say publicly how much I appreciate all Chris's work and how much I appreciated working with Chris. And I think it's really excellent that Chris has had the opportunity and has taken it so productively to write a book that marks our struggle against, as I say, the greatest crime of the century. So I recommend all of you, I commend to all of you the cause, the book and the author.